Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's Last Post ceremony. My name is Emily Hiles, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Corporal Eliza Handley. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. If you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where family and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and on operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths and floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Arthur Jefferson Lane. Arthur Lane was born in 1897 in Coorong Vale, Victoria, one of 5 children born to a local station master, Thomas Lane, and his wife Bertha. Arthur spent much of his childhood in Traralgon, where his father was a station master and where he received his early education and participated in senior cadets. In 1909, his mother died, leaving his father, Thomas, to care for the 5 children. After finishing his schooling, Arthur completed a course in accounting and moved to Melbourne, where he worked as a clerk in the head office of the State Savings Bank. 18-year-old Arthur enlisted in the Imperial Force on the 22nd of February 1916. He was assigned to the reinforcements of the 60th Battalion and began a short period of training. In June 1916, Arthur was joined by his younger brother William, who had been assigned to the same battalion. The pair embarked together on the troop ship Nestor from Melbourne on the 2nd of October 1916. The Lane brothers arrived in England in early November 1916 and continued training with their unit. They spent Christmas together in camp. However, William contracted mumps and remained in England when Arthur embarked at the end of the month. Before he was able to join his unit, Arthur also contracted the mumps and was sent to hospital in Canberra to recover. He joined his unit in mid-February during the advance which followed the German retreat to the fortified Hindenburg Line. His first major battle took place near the French village of Bullecourt in May 1917. The battle was the Allies' second attempt to capture the village. After the carnage of the first attack a month earlier, its eventual capture came at a cost of 7,000 Australian casualties. This was the Lane brothers' introduction to the war on the Western Front. In early July, following the second attack at Bullecourt, Private Lane was sent to the 3rd Army Sniping School for further training. He remained there until the end of the month, rejoining his unit before they were redirected to the Belgian front in early September. There, Private Lane took part in an attack on the German defensive at Polygon Wood on the 26th of September 1917. Despite the heavy enemy resistance, Allied troops were able to secure their objectives and consolidate the lines within days. This success was not without cost, however. By the end of the battle, Allied casualties amounted to a staggering 5,770 men, killed, wounded, or taken prisoner. Private Lane was later recommended for a military medal for charging an observation post under heavy artillery fire to obtain information for his unit. Lane spent the remainder of 1917 in the Belgian front lines as a series of major battles raged on. In January 1918, he and his brother were granted leave, which they spent in Paris. On their return in February, Arthur was awarded the Belgian Croix de Coeur for his role in the Battle of Polygon Wood. He was granted a further period of leave in mid-February and returned to the UK. He rejoined his unit in the front lines in March 1918 as Allied units were attempting to repulse a major German offensive. Lane's battalion was defending the sector around Corby when German forces overran and captured the town of Villers-Frontier on the 24th of April. it was decided that the town needed to be recaptured by the Australians that same night. Before the enemy had a chance to dig in and fortify their positions, a vicious fight ensued as Australian units battled to retake the town, which they succeeded in doing at a cost of almost 2,500 casualties. Among the dead was Private Arthur Lane, who had been killed while advancing on the town. His commanding officer wrote to Lane's father saying, "Poor Ted, as we called him, was wounded slightly through the foot and a little later shot through the head. I went to him immediately, but the poor boy died at once. I went out later with a Red Cross flag, and the enemy allowed us to secure his body. We had him carried right back, and he was buried at the cemetery of Albany. A chaplain was present, and a cross has been erected on his grave. From the colonel down, he was esteemed in the battle for his gentlemanly conduct, courage, and capabilities. We, who cared so much for him, feel how much we miss him. He was a grand boy. I pray that you will be comforted in your great sorrow by the knowledge that he had died as he had lived, a true gentleman and a brave soldier." 2 days later, Arthur's brother William was killed in action as Australian units struggled to secure the town. William's body was never recovered. Arthur Lane was buried in Albany British Cemetery near the town of Villers-Bronto. Their grieving father later chose the inscription for the grave, which reads, "Boys, ye fought as heroes, fight, and died as men." Arthur Lane was 21 years old. His name is listed on the honour roll to my right among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today by the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Arthur Jefferson Lane, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. Of the going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of our director, staff and volunteers, we thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today and for your continued support of the Memorial's development project. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.